think that, I mean, we're here at a radio station, you'd think that we would be great at it, but every day I shouldn't say every day, but often we find out how we're not. We think someone meant something. Just put this in here.
Well, that's the real challenge. What skillful means is to kind of, figure out what to say to a person where they're at so that way they can hear you.
Right. Right. You'd think it'd be easy, but...
No, I don't.
No, well, you know, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what Spiral Dynamics, not my album, but the actual theory is kind of getting at, is to kind of like help people figure out where other people are at and how to say things that will resonate with them where they're at.
Yeah, actually, because you had sent me a couple of links way back when we started this conversation.
Yeah, I actually thought that might have scared you away.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, that's too much.
Well, I just thought, okay, here's someone who's going to help me with this.
Right. Well, like even today, like even though the album is called Spiral Dynamics, I'm going to avoid talking about the concept of hierarchy, or even unpacking what all of that is about necessarily.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's too much, and it's also ideas that for a lot of people are divisive. Do you know what I mean? Because people have this kind of idea of elites and and like authority as bad. People trying to. They think hierarchy. They think imposed dictator hierarchy, not natural growth hierarchy.
Right. Same with elite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a word that is certainly.
It's a bad word in a lot of.
Well, yeah, the right has really taken it to mean. Well, and for a long time, intellectual was a word that was.
Right.
It's like, well, we don't want intellectuals in the country. Really?
Why not? That's exactly.
What's the option?
We want the people who pray to run the country.
Or I just never got the despise of intellectuals. Yeah. Now you may not even know what you're saying. You may mean something else, but I want intellectuals running the country.
Yeah.
I want people running the country who are smarter than me.
Yeah, exactly. Not just somebody you want to have a beer with.
Exactly. And I remember when I was a teenager, and Reagan was running. And the whole thing was, well, he's a guy you'd like to have a beer with. That's probably true. I could probably sit down and have a great conversation with Ronald Reagan. He does seem like a guy I want to have a beer with.
Sure.
I don't want a guy necessarily. That's not the top priority.
Right.
It's like, no.
Maybe down to earth, but that's not the main thing we're looking for.
No, right, and just like the main thing I'm looking for is not necessarily someone who is. Yeah, we want loyal and direct,
Yeah, we want wisdom. We want some skillful discernment.
Right.
We want some big picture kind of worldviews to come in and be like, okay, this is how we're going to organize this from a higher perspective.
Right.
That's not just some marginal, partial, reductionist view where they're going to come in and be like, we're right and everybody else is wrong.
Right. That will get us nowhere.
Get us exactly where we are,
well,
fighting over resources, living completely unsustainable, where we don't even realize. Oh man, I should probably save some of this for.
Yeah, okay. There was a very unfortunate, or not unfortunate, but sad story that was on NPR several months ago, and they had a clip from every president, from Obama back to Nixon, talking about how we have to get off fossil fuels. It's like, we love to say that.
Yeah.
But what has happened since then? Not a lot.
Lots to talk about change.
Yes. Talking about change is very, very easy.
And very popular, too.
Yes. Because it's what we want. We want talk about change. Yeah. We don't want change.
And we all want change, but none of us can agree on what the change is supposed to be.
Thank you. I mean, I even feel sorry for the Republican leadership right now because you have a majority of Americans say we want the deficit cut. Mm-hmm. No ifs, ands, or buts. We want spending cut. We want lower taxes. Then when the majority of Americans are asked about any individual thing cut, not one gets 50%.
Right.
So what are we telling our lawmakers? I think we are
not, credible enough to be able to take our, we're not necessarily what's going to, the popular vote does not necessarily decide what's in the best interest of everybody.
Exactly.
And people are not necessarily qualified to be able to even make those judgments.
In fact, that's how I look at my vote.
Yeah.
I am voting for the person who I think is best at discerning the information and making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really think that don't get me started. I just wonder if the electorate...
But do you think that any of these people actually are... I think that the system is so antiquated and broken at this point that the real change that we need cannot be something that you vote into office.
Well, I think you might be right. And I think not only is it antiquated, or not only is it broken, can you, the electorate's not 300 million, our population's 300 million, but can an electorate of 150 million or 170 million, can it even govern itself? I mean, have we gotten to the point where we're so big and so informed, if not informed with necessarily information, that we can't make those, that's kind of what you're saying, we can't make changes.
Right. We're not recording right now.
No.
Well, then I don't mind saying this. I think what we need is, I think, like we're saying, it takes enlightened leadership, people
right.
with a bigger perspective to be able to, get over this biased kinds of decision-making processes,
right.
which is, I think biased decision-making processes is our main core problem.
Absolutely.
And everything else is just a symptom of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And what we really need is a declaration of interdependence. And it'll be the people who come together out of their own maturity and growth that decide to say, we are going to make this change.
Right.
And we have decided how we're going to do it. And that's what I'm going to Florida to try and start.
Well, and there are, the positive thing is there are examples. McDonald's changed some of their packaging because there was enough consumer demand to do that. And when McDonald's did it, that meant others had to do it.
Yeah.
Walmart is changing things because there has been a demand both from consumers and from pressure from how you appear as a company. It can happen, but what we're talking about is a huge...
Yeah. And I'm thinking of ways that we can apply, this integral philosophy to practical things like just that, because really, people like us, we're just trying to live our life. We're poor, you know what I mean?
Right.
If we're going to take part in a revolution, it has to do with where we go to work and where we put our money. It's a marketplace revolution. And so that means really grading products and being able to say, okay, let's look at this product. What is the grade that this particular product gets? How does it impact the environment? How do they deal with their employees?
Right.
What is their grade as in terms of sustainability and all that as a company in general? And then get a product, and then we'll say and probably the first people who will take these kinds of marks on their products will be people who are already doing really good and they're proud of it.
Right.
And then we'll say we're committed not to buy things that are under a certain quality rating, and we're going to try our best for A and B products, and D and F products we're not going to do, and C products is like only an emergency.
And it gets complicated because I know this Honda will last longer.
Mm-hmm.
But this Chevy Volt is actually made here. And if we want to continue to be strong and try, manufacturing is actually,
But this is part of conscious decision making, is looking at all these different aspects of, and then weighing pros and cons. What it's called in integral theory is the greatest depth for the greatest span.
Right.
So not just the greatest good for the greatest number, which is kind of a flat land. Maybe viruses would win. Whatever is good for viruses.
Exactly.
So it's like this is increase the greatest depth, the greatest wisdom, the greatest altitude for the greatest span, the biggest number. You know what I mean? So and then it's really your hierarchy is working to support your the system.
Right.
And then you can have something like collective individualism or something like that, where the individual is working to support the system and the system is working to support the individual, instead of this game of everybody fight over these resources, you know what I mean? Where we can actually start to work together, and I mean, just look at what happened in Japan. I mean, it is a fact that our systems are connected, and that what happens to them affects us all. And I mean, the Earth's rotation was thrown off. Our economy felt a big hit. Like these ideas of us and them are totally antiquated, and they have to.
They have to be. They have to be.
Yeah.
If you're actually going to progress.
That was a good warm up.
Yeah, it was. It was a good warm up for me. That little push. How would you like, when I do the introduction later, how would you like me to identify you? As a philosopher and musician? As
yeah, philosopher and musician is good. I like I'm big into comparative mythology too, but it turns out that like so much spirituality is just like some nonsensical spiritual bypassing, using spirituality as a way to hide their ignorance and avoid pain and like I feel better, to feel better personally or to feel special, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it winds up that I wind up coming off a lot more like a philosopher in terms of, like making distinctions, but I use a lot of poetic, religious, like symbolism and things like that in a metaphorical kind of a way. So, I really like, they're both kind of philosophy.
Well, that's right. Well, let me ask you this. When you were growing up, did you paid attention to music? Music was part of your life?
Oh, yeah. A big part of my life. I grew up, a big fan of Motown and like Michael Jackson and stuff like that. And then as I got a little bit, older, I got more into hip-hop and even into some gangster rap and like I definitely my music and me I grew up, and as I grew, different types of music kind of resonated with me. As I got more into high school, more like punk rock and indie rock and like even more like love songs as I got a little bit older, you know what I mean? So like my music has always really matched my, whatever I was going through in my life at that time and whatever I was feeling. And then, as I got older, I started coming across certain other types of hip hop, and I don't know, like it felt really natural to me because I was always really into had a lot more urban kinds of blues and R&B kind of influences, and so I definitely think I gravitate towards some kind of a hybrid of the two, some kind of rock, hip hop, hard and beautiful. I like the kind of dynamic and dialectic of the two.
And drum beats. You start with Motown, where the drum was a very, almost always an integral part.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're listening to music this whole time. When did you start, this is an odd way to put it, thinking about philosophy?
When did I start getting into philosophy?
Yeah.
Well, I was raised really Christian, and
really Christian, that's an interesting way to put it. Evangelical?
Definitely, born again, non-denominational. I went to a bunch of different kinds of churches.
Charismatic?
I guess there's a bunch of different distinctions you could make. Yeah, I grew up in a really Christian family, and that was really important to us. I remember when I got married, I was still a Christian, and my wife, in the wedding interview, she told my mom that the reason that she married me and that she loved me so much was because I loved God so much, and that she never met anybody who was so sincere in that regard. And I think it was verses like seek and you'll find, and this idea that the truth will always reveal itself no matter how hard you look. the truth will always prove to be true. You can ask a million questions, you know, and the truth will set you free. Seek and you will find, and all this and all this. So as I really started to study Christianity, my tradition, not just what was in the Bible, but the history of the tradition and how it came together, I started to learn about all the different sects of Christianity, all the different versions of Christianity, and how it came together, and it really shook my worldview. Bart Ehrman is a really good person to study if you want to learn about early Christianity. I mean, I pretty much found out that the Bible was written by several different authors, incredibly self-contradictory, and it crumbled in my hands, and I was left without a ground to stand on. And I think that is a really insecure place to be, but it is also a really exciting place to be. And I think a lot of people, when they have something similar to that happen to them, they're looking for something else to grab onto and be like, okay, this is me, now I'm safe. But for me, it was like everything that I looked at, it was the same kind of thing as Christianity. It was cool at first and interesting, but it had its negative aspects and its ridiculous aspects as well. And so I just became a student of different philosophies, whether they be religious traditions or philosophical ideas, and I became really interested in the unfolding of ideas through time. And there's a lot of cool philosophers that talk about that, like Hegel, and Ken Wilber is one of my favorite philosophers. And yeah, it's an ever-expanding understanding of this vast realm of knowledge, and I just learned to be like humble in my approach to it. You know, life is a mystery. You know, everyone thinks that they can hold it down and put it into some kind of words, but you know, truth is relative, and so there's many different cultural interpretations and versions of what's going on, and I just got really interested in that.
So with that curiosity that you have and that exploration, do you try to put some of that into your album or into your music?
Absolutely.
And isn't that a tough thing to do?
Yes.
And wouldn't it be something that even if it's there for you, do you want to make sure that it reaches other people?
Yeah. I mean, I think the real goal of my music is, in some sense, to try and resonate with people who are kind of on my same page out there, or that have similar interests. You know, the world is a tough place to be in right now. It's amazing. You know, I like Charles Dickens. It's the best of times and the worst of times. I think that's probably always true. But I think this album is really kind of, it talks about those kinds of positive and negative aspects, and it's really to try and say, to talk about how the struggle to live in a world that's seemingly set against itself, to how it feels to be awake in a world of dreamers who they don't want to be disturbed. And so not only does it kind of talk about the pain and the struggle and the desire that all beings would be liberated, and that we could come together and create a better world for our future and for our children. And so it talks about that too. You know, it tries to encourage you and to say, you're not alone. We're gonna make it. Find other people who are on your same page. Come together. Like, your discriminations and your moral sense is making a difference in the world. And please, for the sake of us all, keep letting your light shine.
And you want to get all that in there, but then you still want the music to be listenable. I mean,
well, I think it's a powerful message, and the real trick is to deliver it in a way that resonates with different people where they're at, because not everybody is the same amount awake, but we're all trying to become more and more awake, and I think just the goal is to just help people to feel like they're not so alone in this pursuit.
Is there a particular example you'd like listeners to hear that works with
that?
Yeah,
I brought a couple songs. One of them is with me and my wife Candy, and in this it's a particular part in the album where I've just got done expressing my frustration and my worry, and it's to the point where I've decided that I'm going to make a change and that I'm going to start with me. And so this is like my love song to the world, and Candy plays the part of the goddess, which is life, and so I play the part of the devotee, or the person who is devoting themselves to life and to the process. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of in Buddhism. There's this idea of the non-dual realization, and that's where they talk about emptiness is form. They say form is emptiness and emptiness is form, kind of talking about in traditionally in most Eastern and Western religions, there's this kind of idea of throwing off the world for transcendence, whether it be heaven in Christianity, or nirvana, emptiness in the Eastern religions, and this is more about the non-dual embrace, like taking that understanding of emptiness and heaven and nirvana and that perspective and bringing it back into the world for service. And so, if you want, it's called Never Be Apart.
Play that.
A drop in the ocean, a drop in the sea, or am I the wetness, the very essence of everything, everything, everything. I open my eyes, I'm all that I see, mirror mind reflecting, still projecting, and I'm accepting my power to change what I see before it changes me, before it changes me. You lift me up, we can rise together. Catch you when you fall. When times are tough, we'll get through together. We can never be apart. Never be apart. We can never be apart. Sacred goddess, I take your earthly body as my bride. I pledge allegiance to your seasons, embracing change as I abide. In the tide, you drop and rise. You move and shift your currents. This life's a ride, and you make me feel the power of your urges. See with my eyes, but I know the limits of my understanding compromises my control. So I will research and plan, open up my mind, my body, and my soul. Create this role and play it, open up my mouth and say it. I promise that each day I'm alive I will live for you, considering your reaction to everything I do. If not for you, there would be no me. Only together can we ever be complete, balanced and free, living in harmony. I'm not talking about utopia. To say yes to life is to say yes to friction and to pain. After all, it is only through suffering that we gain wisdom. So how can we say that pain is bad, when to live is to suffer, and life is good? Live is to suffer, 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 live is to suffer. You lift me up, we can rise together. I catch you when you fall. When times are tough, we'll get through together. We can never be apart. Never be apart. We can never be apart. And I know that times are tough, and you're wondering, will we ever make it? We have to make it. And I know that times are tough, and you're wondering, will we ever make it? We have to make it. And I know that times are tough, and you're wondering, will we ever make it? We have to make it. And I know that times are tough, and you're wondering, will we ever make it? We have to make it. And I know that times are tough, and you're wondering, will we ever make it? We have to make
You mentioned that your wife, Candy, is a collaborator on this album. There are a lot of collaborators.
Yeah, and Candy is on 8 of the 18 tracks. Most of the collaborations are on the second half, which is the more kind of like encouraging, we're gonna make it kind of half, and that's where most of the other collaborations are too. But yeah, there was a really unique collaboration process on this particular album where I had some friends on Facebook, and we had shared music with each other, and a Buddhist monk friend of mine who lives in Brooklyn, his name is Words Dharma. He does some hip-hop on the album, and also my friend Brian Castleman, who lives in California. So we're spread across the United States here, and while we were making the album, we just sent each other emails and information videos and talks and things like that to kind of try and get on the same page about what our songs were going to be about, what we're going to try to express through the music. And I just recently, maybe a week ago, just talked to Brian Castleman face-to-face on Skype for the first time.
So you had never talked face-to-face?
Not even on the phone.
So collaborated over Facebook and
yeah,
the
and
web?
we did like 5 songs together or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it was great. And I think there was a lot of pros to that in a lot of ways, because having to put your ideas in writing really makes you put a lot more thought into them and make them a lot more specific. And we could criticize each other in a way that was, I don't know, a lot more specific. There's a lot is communicated through body language and through, and usually a lot of times that leaves a lot unsaid, I find. So I like both writing and speaking and video, audio.
Couldn't have done that 30 years ago, you probably couldn't have done it 10 years ago.
No, it's pretty amazing the time that we're living in and the doors that technology has kicked open for us artists.
Are you an optimist? Because, I mean, you say that, you know, especially the second half of this album is about encouragement.
Yeah.
I guess encouragement doesn't mean you're an optimist, though.
No, it doesn't. I don't think that I don't think that anything is destined to happen. I don't think that good will triumph over evil, or I think that you know, those kinds of dualistic ideas are kind of antiquated. I think that we, over and over in the album, I say, even in the end of that song with Candy, I say, we have to make it, which is sort of a double entendre, you know. Will we ever make it? We have to make it, you know. Well, that's the answer. We have to make it. Are we going to make it? We have to make it. Like, we have to stop asking for other people's permission. We have to stop looking for other people's validation. You know, we can't, you know, just vote for Obama and then think it's going to work out and then blame him when it doesn't. We have to really decide, what am I doing every day in the world, you know, and take responsibility for that. That's how we make it, you know. It starts with us deciding to do better, and then, you know, coming together and with other people who want to do better, and having in that creative friction, creating something, you know, bigger and better than either one of us could have done by ourselves. And, you know, I can make a bunch of noise and do a bunch of things, but really it's going to have to come down to people who decide that they want to live that way.
What would you say to someone who listens and then shrugs your shoulders and says, I don't get it? Because that's always the possibility. Someone,
yeah,
you know, I'm
sure it happens. You know, I kind of feel like I write music for like 0.2% of the world's population who will get it, and you know, and in some ways other people might get it too, and that's awesome. Sometimes I kind of, you know, feel like I might be a little bit of a novelty act, like maybe I don't want to be put in the same section as Weird Al, you know, in the books, in the CD store or something like that. But I definitely sometimes feel like I'm the only person doing what I'm doing, and that's a little bit scary and lonely. But it's authentic to me. You know what I mean? Art is about expressing yourself, and if finding other people who like it is like finding other people who get you. They're like another version of yourself out there, or something like that. And I think it's so cool to find those people, and that's why I make music, is so that way I can resonate with people who are like me. And if you're not like me and you don't get it, well, listen to something else. That's fine.
We all don't get something.
Right. I mean, there's tons of things that I really like, that I'm not really, I mean, in terms of the message, that I'm not really into, and there's music that I like that I really like the music, and I'm just like, ugh, this message is crap.
Yeah. The key there is, don't get it stuck in your head so you're singing it under your breath at the store.
Yes.
You know? And people turn, what the hell are you talking about? By the time this airs, you'll be in a different time zone. You'll be in Florida.
Yeah, but we have the internet.
Yes, we do.
And my fans are, you know, they're spread out all over the world, because mostly I advertise through the internet anyways. You can go on the internet and download my album from iamdavidlong.bandcamp.com, and I have a couple albums on there, and you can download them all for free. They're set to name your own price, but you can put $0 in there. I'm happy to give my music away for free. It's finding its audience, you know, and the message is more important than money. If people can feel encouraged and feel like they're not alone, then goal accomplished.
What do you hope, if you and I sit here 2 years from today, you've been in Florida because you're moving to Jacksonville, what do you hope you're telling me about the previous 2 years?
Well, me and Candy are talking about starting Metasapien the band. Metasapien is when what we call our project when it's me and her together. it's almost like a hybrid of like masculine and feminine consciousness come together as like meta sapien, you know, the next stage in human evolution or something like that. It's sort of a fun word. But yeah, we're gonna try and make it like an actual band with you know, real instruments and maybe some horns, and like do like a big production of it. So I would really like to see that. I think people would be pretty shocked and blown away by some kind of a giant band hip hop thing.
What if we were going to leave listeners with something off the album at the end of this? What would you select?
Well, the last song on the album is called Sangha, and Sangha is a word that means like communion in the Christian tradition. It's like a group of people coming together, and in that coming together under the banner of something higher, they're all lifted up, like and it sort of incorporates Eastern and Western traditional terms and language to kind of talk about this sort of sacred space in which we can come together and create a better world. And I think that's a pretty good note to leave it on.
We are gathered here today in embracing sacred union, offering at 1 mint when you enter this communion. Holy brethren, welcome to the Sangha. Let us gather in a circle. Mother Mary, Harry Krishna, this time Agni's burning purple. Now pass that sacrament to me. Yes, I'm the Holy Trinity, body, mind, and spirit, the Buddha, Sangha, Dharma. Tell me, can you feel it? Then practice yoga with your karma. Can you let down your defenses? Can you take off all that armor? Namaste. The time has come for us to seize the day. Yes, it's God's play, but what skills are you uniquely bringing to the table? Are you able to speak in and see through fable? Can you create and transcend labels? Can you enable the unstable? Now tell me, can you measure depth and span? And do you really give a damn when you wake up? Do you give a hand just because you can? From what perspective are you moving? What direction are you going? What ends and goals are you pursuing? And what methods are you showing?
I don't really know how to answer that. Easy when I make it sound like a song. When I live with man, it just changes on. Everything is perfect, I am now laughing. You're looking for something, you don't know what it is. Open my arms, guys, I'm dancing. Sitting on a train and I lost my thought of train. From the train of thought of God. Remain as I am forever. You're looking for me, but you're only dreaming. Truth is when you can detach and see it as fleeting.
Come let us all join in. Come let us search within. In holy communion we gather as one. We offer up our hands, our voices and our talents, our service to the greater good has just begun.
Welcome to the Sangha in which we all play a vital role. Each one has a special talent. We encourage you to grow as we discover new grounds. A new thought that makes a crown of wisdom that shine forth from divine source. The sacred sound. Marble boombox breaks the locks. Release the knots. Every stock of the mind. Loose the spines from the heart. Read the signs. See, we are one family. It goes way beyond me. It goes way beyond the I. It's the intersubjective we. Let's all reach humanity. Let's all love entirety. Let's all rise above and beyond. Shine reality. Cause we're living in the age of the narcissist grade. Plagued by the false individual selfish play. Invite the transcendental training of the sacred mental to evolve, to be gentle, spiritually influential. We encourage you to grow. It's essential to show new ways to expand in the land of the brighter road.
Doesn't even really matter where we meet. Sangha's not a physical place. Just leave your ego at the door, and we'll create our sacred space. Here in our circle, we are all equal. We all have something search within. In holy communion we gather as one. We offer up our hands, our voices and our talents. Our service to the greater good has just begun. Come let us all join in. Come let us search within. In holy communion we gather as one.
Keep it on.
Well, let me ask you one more question, though. We need to talk about the title of the album
Yes.
and what that refers to.
Spiral dynamics is a part of integral theory, and it has to do with stages of cognitive development, and also it has to do with value systems that are in place in the world. And so the reason I called my album Spiral Dynamics is because it's partly where my head is at right now. I named my last album The Outer Regions of Inner Space after one of the books by one of my favorite all-time, he's like my hero. His name is Joseph Campbell. He's a comparative mythology teacher. Comparative mythology is like other people's religions. So the reason I called it that is just because it has to do with dealing with where people are at and dealing and relating yourself to the context, and it also fits within the overall theme of the names of my albums, I guess.
You're probably never going to outsell Lady Gaga.
No, I'm never going to outsell Lady Gaga, but it's not about numbers or things like that. I mean, ultimately, it's hard to tell what art is going to be like in the future, because big picture, who knows? Maybe Lady Gaga is just some passing fad like Britney Spears in the night. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
And okay,
maybe.
and I mean, I still might not sell as many albums as Lady Gaga.
And nothing against her, but
But But if you look at art, big picture, you know what I mean? I'm young. I have a lot of years of art left in me, and I've been producing an album a year for like 3 years, or 4, maybe even longer. Just under this project in particular, 3 years. But I mean, if I keep going at this rate, I'm gonna be like the next KRS-One.
hey, well, best of luck and best hope for the travels in the future.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Where can people again go if they're interested?
If you go to iamdavidlong.bandcamp.com, you can download all my stuff for free, and don't feel bad about it. I have it set to name your own price for donations, but I really just want people to have it.
Thanks a lot, David.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
That's great.
Man, that is difficult stuff.
Well, I mean, one of the things humans love to do the most is talk about themselves and what they're interested in. One of the hardest things to do is talk about yourself and what you're interested in, especially when it's very, very close to your passion and your heart.
Yeah. Dude, I really want to... Even thinking about all this, I'm like, man, I need to have a website where I can send people, be like, you want to get involved in the movement? Like, this is what's going on, this is what you can do, go to this website, because I don't have time to tell you.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not something that you can cover in 20 minutes.
No.
Obviously not.
But I mean, it's like, I love to make music, but the reason that I would make this kind of music is because of the message.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And so
yeah.
The reason that I'm here to talk about it is because I think the message is important.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's almost like, the zeitgeist movement?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like, you don't want to be like that, where you just get people all excited and give them nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? You want to be like, get excited and do this.
Right. Well, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
That's the challenge with anything. I mean, take something like Farm Aid. I think they still have the Farm Aid concerts.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first one was in college, and it was on MTV or something. There was Neil Young and Willie Nelson and Farmers Need Help, and I got excited. There's Willie Nelson and Neil Young and people like that on stage. And I called and I donated. I was a poor college student and I donated. And then 20 minutes later,
Yeah.
I'm playing Space Invaders.
And see, and that's why that won't work. You know what I mean? You can't. It can't just be like a donate the money and forget about it. Right. It's got to be like, change how you live. And how do you tell people change how you live? It's like,
well, yeah, you've got to come out. You've got to. It's a nuanced thing.
Yeah.
Because my first reaction is when someone tells me change how I live is like, whoa.
Fuck you. Who are you to tell me what to do? And that is the response that you usually get, and that's why it's not just to make change. You have to make change in all four quadrants, which means that the person needs to feel like it's something that they can do. Right. They need to identify with I'm a kind of person who does this, recycles or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? And then they need to do it. Right. And then to be able to do it, they need the system in place. Right. So that way they have the opportunity and the option to do it. And then, also to have the social pressure to be like, around here we recycle. Right. And we're proud of that. Like, all of those things together, that's what makes it work. Yeah, it does no good if, I put this box of bottles out on the street and no one ever picks it up. Right. You gotta have, And I mean, like, I'm vegan, you know what I mean? Me can't eat, and it's hard to be vegan. You gotta cook. Like, if you don't know how to cook, you're not gonna be a good vegan, But you're not gonna be alive, Either you're gonna be a good vegan and dead. If you have places around restaurants that support, that's really great, Right. I mean, but you need all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I mean, great point. Say you want to be a vegan, but you live in Harrison, Arkansas. Yeah. I mean, that's incredibly tough. Incredibly difficult, right. But if you're basically saying, I'm going to be in charge of my own food all the time. Right, right. And Brian Castleman, that kid I did the collaboration with, he lives in California, and he's like, if you go to the gas station there, they have a vegan section. I'm like, are you kidding me? The gas station's like junk food central. Yeah. Well, and here is something that I thought about for a long time. I grew up in a little town outside of Mountain Home. Mm-hmm. Mountain Home, then 6,000, maybe now 10 or 11,000. Very conservative. Mm-hmm. And by conservative, not necessarily just politically, but very, you'd be seen as weird. Of course. I'm seen as weird. And if you're weird, there's some sort of like, what's your problem? What do you not like about us? Right? I mean, it's a very sort of, so, what do people do? They leave Mountain Home. And that's what Spiral Dynamics would deal with, And on one hand, it would say that, a person can only be what's next for them to become. Because there's this cognitive unfolding. Bigger ideas rest upon smaller ideas. Right. So you can't just say, oh, you're fucked up, I'm going to take you and grab you and pull you all, Right. No, they have, like if you're a Christian, then you need to learn about rationality. Right. And then we'll talk about, existentialism and the relativeness of all of these truths. And then we'll talk about how to integrate them all, But if people like you and me, and I think by many centers would be considered a mainstream sort of guy, but by Mountain Home not. But if people who chafe by the sort of boring, vanilla, mainstream attitudes, if you leave Harrison, you leave Mountain Home, you leave Peoria or whatever, and you go to the places, because here's a gas station that does have a vegan section, then is there any hope? Because we're completely separating ourselves, you know what I mean? I mean, so these will always be pockets where people all think alike, and all like the same movies and the same food or whatever. I mean, that's a generalization. Sure. And the people who could most change that town are the people who, like for me, I went to Fayetteville. That's why they need to come together, and they need to say, okay, we're going to lead by example, not just as individuals, but as a group. We're going to say, this is how, and this is what's really cool, because you have these hacks into these traditions like evolutionary enlightenment and evolutionary Christianity, if you can believe it. Oh yeah. And that is, I mean, dude, when those two guys talk, like, I feel it in I burn inside. They get me amped. And that's the other thing. So it's not just all about this, transitions, you know what I mean, and getting people to evolve, but also to have a healthy translation where they're at, because everybody starts at square one, everybody's gonna have an impulsive egoic stage.
Right.
Everybody's gonna be a conformist, you know, and that's what the real issue is with what they call first tier thinking, is like those lower aspects of the spiral. Is everyone is trying to kill everyone else and say my truth is the only truth.
Right. Right.
Even the postmodernists who say, you know, all truths are equal. That's their truth. That
Exactly.
They're trying to push on everybody else.
Exactly.
So what then you do is then you have skillful means to try and work with people where they are. So if the goal is sustainability, then you say, okay, if I'm talking to, you know, a tribal consciousness person, you know what I mean, like then I'm gonna appeal to, you know, things that are going to resonate with them, you know, about the, you know, the spirit of Gaia and, you know, protecting the earth and blah, you know, like the rainbow warriors and whatever.
Right, right.
And then if it's like, if it's narcissists, and you go, you know, like you know, you better respect nature, otherwise how are you going to play in it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's traditional conformists, you know, you can quote their scripture and you can say that we're supposed to be good stewards of the earth and the
Right.
environment. And if it's you know, a rational scientific materialist or something, you can be like, this makes sense. You know, green building. It may cost you more now, but
Right.
it'll save you more in the long term.
Right.
Sustainability. It's like it's a necessity of business. Well, you know, so you see, I'm speaking different languages.
But there
And
are
it's easy to sell green to green, though.
Right.
You know, but
sure. But I mean, you know, you go back to recycling. I mean, there are all sorts of different reasons you can support recycling.
Mhm.
One of them being the landfill's getting full,
sure,
and when the landfill gets full, we don't know what we're going to do, and it's going to cost us more.
right.
So let's, you know, there are different ways to.
Yeah, and that line of reasoning is gonna appeal to a certain type
Right.
of person. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And then other people are gonna, I mean, you know, and that's the idea of, you know, transcend and include. As you get higher, you
Right.
also incorporate the lower, and so
Right. And it works. And I'm
Yeah.
fully aware that it works both ways.
sure.
That some of the things I just said about where I grew up
Mhm.
are just as closed-minded as what I accuse people there of being. You know, I made this generalization.
Yeah, but you know, there's a reason for generalizations too. You know what I mean? I'm not saying. I mean, they're always wrong, but
Right.
there's a reason to be able to put people in boxes to figure out, you know,
Right.
about where. And so in spiral dynamics, the reason, you know, you got to be careful with it is because people always try to reduce other people to a stage. They go, "Oh, Kyle Kellams, you're orange.
Right.
You're a scientific materialist."
Right.
Blah blah, you know, and that's messed up because, you know, orange is like that's like an altitude of ideas. You know what I mean? So you might have orange ideas, or you might be at an orange altitude, but I'm not going to reduce you to the stage
Right.
of development that you're at.
Well, and you know, Tuesday might
Because
have-
I was Christian, right?
Right.
And some of us have ideas that are higher and they're pulling us along, and some of us have ideas that are lower and they're
Well,
holding us down.
I
Same
love-
thing in society,
Right.
right?
And I love the example of Barnum, who's left Christianity now. Right.
Mhm.
I mean, as he was writing
He's
books.
agnostic, I
Yeah.
guess.
I interviewed him once.
You did?
I did.
I'm a big fan of his.
I am too, and he's so down to earth and.
That's why he's so good at doing what he does.
Yeah, and he's knowledgeable.
Yes.
What I love about him is because there are a lot of people who knock Christianity, and
they don't know it.
Right, exactly. And you can have this broad brush. Not him.
Sure.
I mean, he's gone back, and he's not just researched the Bible, but he knows about the apocryphals and all that. And
Right.
It's just so interesting to read him, and he takes a very analytical, historical perspective.
See, he's got that orange rational
Right.
perspective on Christianity, and he's transcended it. You know what I mean? But
He's not Christopher Hitchens.
no, he's not.
You know, and
he's not.
yeah.
But he's also not. He's also not an evolutionary Christian.
No, he's
He
not.
also can't see it as transrational poetry.
Right.
You know, and that's when I think all these traditions really come alive. And that's why I really like Joseph Campbell.
Yes.
Because he's the one who really kind of taught me to read it almost as like archetypes of the collective unconscious.
Exactly.
And then they really start to sing to you, and that's what, you know, certain aspects of the music is about too. Is about kind of taking those universal ideas from these particular cultural traditions,
Right.
and putting them together to show how they're saying the same thing, and look how it applies to our life today.
Right. And don't be scared
Yeah.
of doing that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
because it's beautiful and it's meaningful, and to have a sacred view of life and the evolutionary
Absolutely.
process is, and to embrace evolution,
Right.
and to say, I'm going to take part in evolution, my evolution as a
Right.
person and our evolution as a society.
Right.
Like, those are the bodhisattvas we need.
Yeah.
Not people staring at a wall all day. That's not helping anybody. You know what I mean? So.
Damn, I wish I weren't moving. Let's stay in touch.